You know, I can I can only take so much sometimes when people criticize stuff, and they have a right to criticize. Don't get me wrong. But when somebody criticizes, oh, I see what fell. But when somebody criticizes, um, somebody criticizes the Sonic SatAM show, to me, again, I know they have a right to criticize and say what they want and do what they want and all that. But to me, it's more along the lines of you need to criticize. If you're going to show unfavoring criticism to certain episodes, you should choose them correctly. Now, this one person that obviously has a criticization, kind of a dislike, if you will, for Sonic in some ways. Not only criticizes what he calls the worst of Sonic in the comic books, but he also criticizes what he considers the worst of Sonic in the cartoons, and more specifically SatAM. And his account, you may know who I'm talking about anyway. You may know who I'm talking about. I'll provide a link to his account, his channel there. But basically, he criticized some of the episodes of SatAM. Now, I know a lot of people have a right to criticize certain episodes, and that's fine. They have a right, and if they feel a certain way, they do. But unless you pay attention to the show during its run of both seasons, then you'll pretty much have a good idea of exactly why certain episodes occur and why certain things happen in certain episodes when they do. One of his reviews I was watching for Season 2 was Sonic Conversion. Now, I know he's not the only one to have some issues with the episode, and that's fine. But he and anybody else has to understand this. He and anybody else have to understand this, if you will. And what they need to understand is this episode and what occurred in it was foreshadowed. It was. I mentioned this in a video, and I'll probably post a link to that down below. But it was foreshadowed in the video I talked about. And basically, Sonic Conversion just didn't come out of nowhere. No, you see, you got to keep a close eye on certain things. You see, when I did the history of Sonic the Hedgehog, and again, you'll see the link down below, I mentioned this episode, and I mentioned that it had a connection to not just the episode before, which was Game Guy, the season premiere episode of Season 2, but also had a connection to the first season episode, Ultrasonic. And you see, there were several clues there. For example, right almost at the beginning, when when Sonic and Sally meet up with Bunny, Rhoda, and Antoine, one of the first things Rhoda says was they weren't able to find any spare roboticizer parts. Now you say to yourself, why in the world would they need to look for spare roboticizer parts? Well, you would find out later on. Because even in the first episode of Season 2, they're looking for spare parts, to make the roboticizer. They're basically looking for spare parts. And you keep wondering to yourself, why? Until you finally hear it come out, I think, out of Sally's mouth, that they're looking for spare parts for a de-roboticizer. That's right. Basically, the plan, and obviously, I think if the show had continued with another season, the plan for the Freedom Fighters was to try to counteract Robotnik's roboticizer with a de-roboticizer. In other words, let's say somebody gets roboticized right off the bat, they could try to capture get that person back to Knothole, de-roboticize him on the spot. That's what this episode was about. Basically, this episode basically was built up, believe it or not, from the first season episode Ultrasonic. Now, again, I understand some people may not find that connection, but it is there, including using the power ring to restore Uncle Chuck's free will. But again, the foreshadowing and the connections are there. So to me, again, I understand there will be some people besides this individual that will have their problems with Sonic SatAM episode Sonic Conversion. I get that. I know that obviously later on, if I get a chance to watch some of his, if not all of his reviews on Blast of the Past, already I could see like in a highlight box, those little boxes of, that they put when you upload a video. I can already see that he's got some criticization for Blast of the Past. But maybe I'm wrong. But again, you have to understand that sometimes certain things get built up, in even if you don't notice it and you don't see the connection. Like I said, Sonic Conversion's foreshadowing was seen even before this, not just in the episode before, but in the first season. And again, I'm pretty sure one of the issues he may have, I haven't watched it yet, with Blast of the Past, is he'll probably say this episode or this miniseries should have been the first one aired during the second season. Well, yeah, that's true. That could be true. If he says that. I'm not sure if he does. But let me explain something. I mean, I understand he's 15, 16 years old. I get that. He doesn't quite grasp the concept, if that's the case. But the thing is, I will agree that Blast of the Past should have been the first two episodes shown. Give you an idea of why things were happening the way they were or had been happening. But again, it's all about, the way it was structured. And even if you have some criticism of certain episodes, guess what? They're meant for a reason. And I thought, honestly, Blast of the Past was good. I mean, I thought it was good to the point that later on, probably in a little while, I'm going to use my DVD fab to DVD fab it from a variety disc I have so I can watch it on the way to Disneyland tomorrow. Yeah, I'm packing up some movies and all that to watch on the way. But again, to me, it's like you need to watch it first. And I'm pretty sure he does, but you need to look for stuff to kind of get an understanding as to why a lot of people like certain episodes. And yes, they will have some nitpicks and flaws that they want to point out, but that's what nothing's perfect. But again, getting back to Sonic Conversion, if you don't know the episode, well, if you don't know the backstory behind it, if you don't see the clues, you don't see the hints, then you need to pay more close attention. You need to take a look. You need to basically say, okay, I get now why this episode's happening, why, Bunny Rabbit's suddenly getting de-roboticized. Now, I do understand as well that, while I'm at it, I do understand it as well that he has a problem with the comic books. And I can understand his frustration. I mean, you take a look at a lot of people, they've had their frustrations with the comics over the past, 5 to 6 years and all that. And, I'm one of them. I mean, I've given my opinion. I've given my criticism on some of the comics and stuff. So, but this guy, I get how let me put it to you like this. One of his more recent reviews, or one of his past reviews, or whatever they were, was of 172, 173. Okay, 172 I can kind of understand, but if you take a look at some of the clues, I think even going as far as 160, of when Ian Flynn first started, you kind of get the idea that there was foreshadowing there. Like something just wasn't clicking when, Bean and Bark kind of said what they did to Fiona. And then if you would have read the episode, read the issues afterwards and seen the interrogation and all that, then you'd have an idea. Okay, something's just not clicking right. Why is this all of a sudden happening? Why is this happening? Why is this? Why is that? Again, you got to look for the clues, and you got to look at them you got to look at them and focus really in on them. You know what I'm saying? And then when you see the episodes where she's missing, that should be more foreshadowing. Even when Scourge does what he does and mentions what he says in the birthday bash deal, it makes you think. It's like, why is this why is he saying this stuff? And all of a sudden, leading up to 172, you wonder, where's Fiona? What's going on? And again, it isn't until 172 when you see everything happening and you finally see Scourge show up and Fiona say what she does, and basically the truth is revealed. Then all of a sudden do the pieces of the puzzle come together and you're like, oh shit, you got to be kidding us, right? And that's basically about it. Now, I understand that, this person here, along with many other fans, just don't get why Ian Flynn went in this direction. Why all of a sudden he decides, hey, I'm going to turn Fiona bad. I'm going to turn her against the freedom fighters. I'm going to make her a villainess. I'm going to make her basically, well, I wouldn't say an anti-hero, if you will, but somewhat in that category. Somewhat of an anti-hero villainess, if you will. And you say to yourself, and I know you always, and I understand people are like, come on, Ian, why? Why would you do this? What was necessary about it? Now, I know some people would come out and say, oh, well, he did it because he's making room for Sonic and Sally to get back together. Okay, honest opinion. Okay, right to your opinion, and maybe a valid point in some ways. But it still doesn't make sense in some eyes. I can understand he feels, maybe, as some people pointed out, that there's a lack of female villains. Okay, we get that. Okay, we get it. You want to balance out the gender on both sides. You got female heroes, male heroes. You have male villains. So you want to balance it out with some female villains. Okay, I get that. But again, it just doesn't make sense to a lot of fans. Even if you threw out all the clues there, it just doesn't make sense to them because they're like, why even do this if it's not possible? Well, not possible, but if it doesn't make any real sense. Why don't you just come out and say, oh, by the way, Fiona was never really part of the Freedom Fighters. They're going to catch her talking to Scourge, and she's going to finally reveal herself. A lot of people feel there could have been other ways that he could have done it and would have made more sense. But honestly, folks, it's all about foreshadowing. Just like I mentioned with the Sonic conversion deal, it's all about foreshadowing. You're basically foreshadowing what's to come, even though you may think after it's said and gone, you may say to yourself, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I don't get it. I don't know why he did this. Why would he do this? It doesn't make sense. Why would they do this? Why would they do that? Look, Ian Flynn and Archie Comics and those working on the Sonic comics may not make sense sometimes with the storylines or why they had certain characters do what they did. But they're not alone, folks. There have been some foreshadowing in a lot of comic books leading up to certain events or certain character turns. And sometimes, just like in this comic book, they make sense and sometimes they don't. Even in movies and in cartoons, same thing. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it don't. So you ask yourself, why in the world would they do this if it doesn't make any fucking sense? Excuse me for a second. Sorry about that, folks. Parent called. That was, didn't mean for that to happen. But anyway, like I was saying, it's all about foreshadowing, folks. It's all about foreshadowing. And whether we whether we want to admit it makes sense or not, it's all about foreshadowing. Foreshadowing. That's basically it. It's all about foreshadowing. That's all it is. And again, I understand some people may say to themselves, it doesn't make sense. I don't get it. Why would you do this? Why would you do that? Why would you blah, blah, blah? Again, Archie Comics isn't the only one. I mean, heck, you've had, those kind of, like I said, Marvel, DC, Image, they've all been subjugated to that same thing. Movie franchises, television shows, cartoons, all the same thing. And either it makes sense or not, whether we agree with it or not, it happens. And, maybe he did it because, he wanted more female villains in the comic. But what are you going to do? I understand a lot of people feel that, whatever he's got planned next, if it's not good, it's the last straw. But, again, you got to give the guy a chance. Yeah, we may not like some of his foreshadowing or his clues and hints that he leaves here and there. But guess what? We got to deal with it and deal with it as best we can. And yeah, we do have a right to criticize and say, oh, this was the worst of it, and this was the worst of it, and that was the worst of it, and this was the worst of it. Yeah, we have a right to say that. But here's the thing. As much as we have a right, we also got to be careful of how we review it. We got to study more. We got to look for the foreshadowing. Like I said, even with Sonic Conversion, the episode Sonic Conversion, we got to look at that foreshadowing and say to ourselves, okay, I get it. He wants this. He wants that. Blah, blah, blah. I get it. So we'll see what happens, what other things may happen with this guy's reviews and everything. Again, he has the right to say, even if he's a teenager, he has the right to say what he wants to say and criticize what he wants to criticize. But again, when it came to Sonic Conversion, to me, that's something you don't criticize that much. I mean, if you want to find some flaws, that's fine. You got the opinion. But to me, I don't think it was very flawed. I think it had some build-up. It had foreshadowing, even going back to the first season. So that's all I'm going to say in response to the worst of Sonic reviews. If I have any more to say down the line, I will. But I thought I'd get this off my chest, and I'll talk to y'all later.